I don't know if it got that or not, but
Yeah, right.
I'm never quite sure exactly where the stream picks up because there's a little delay from OBS. Hey everybody, this is the Jimmy Doane Show. I know we're on now. This is Counselor Curtis. I'm here with Jimmy Doane.
Hi, Jimmy Doane here with Counselor Curtis.
So it always catches you saying whatever, something like right before we start, it gets you somehow.
What can I say? Remember the Alamo.
That's right, there you go. Hey everybody, this is the 6th of March. Hey, happy birthday, Cousin Beth. We do this twice a week these days, 4 p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays. Please join us. Also, if you'd like, we do a time-stamped copy that I'll post up on YouTube and Twitter and Luminary and a bunch of places. Got a new place. You saw that new place I sent you?
Yeah, I did.
So, welcome to the show.
Here we are.
Everybody.
Okay. Well, as I say, the today in 1836 was the Alamo. So
was it?
Yeah. This is all. This is an important day. It's more important than President's Day. Okay, breaking news. Michael Bloomberg will not run for president in 2020. He's going to concentrate on the environment. I mean, on global warming.
Is he still going to spend his $500 million?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he is. I believe I could defeat Donald Trump in a general election, Bloomberg said, but I am clear-eyed about the difficulty of winning the Democratic nomination in such a crowded field, which, I don't know why he would be. He can outspend the hell out of them. What are there now, 20 of them or something? They're coming up on 20? I don't know.
Yeah.
So the other thing is about the forthcoming 2020, or the 2020 is the Democratic Party is requiring presidential candidates to affirm its allegiance to the party. Sanders has filed to run for president as a Democrat, but as an independent for the Senate in 2024. He's hedging his bets. Mm-hmm. So he'll be 83 in 2024. Mm-hmm.
He should hedge his bets.
Yeah, well, that's right. Also today is another anniversary, roughly. The web, in its initial thinking, is 30 years old. And this is... It didn't actually get started until Tim Berners-Lee actually kind of put it together. And, it had been not formalized until he did whatever he did. He has been upset with the way the web has gone. It's like total chaos and everything.
Does he not like porn or something?
No, I don't know. Whatever it was. We're going to get to porn in a minute. And also, made to mention for the Sunday show, be careful. Daylight savings time. Yep, daylight savings time begins on Sunday at 12:01 or whatever the hell. 2 o'clock in the morning. So we'll probably be here on time, assuming that our clocks get set, because all the computer clocks get set. Okay.
Yeah, except mine.
Yeah. Well, I believe it or not, I have a battery operated clock.
Oh yeah, trust me, I keep one.
Yeah. So
monkey clock.
So we'll probably be here on time, but so remember to set your clocks ahead an hour, otherwise you'll be too late, and you'll have to catch the replay. Mm-hmm. Okay, next item I've got this is kind of interesting. Volvo has decided to cut the top speed on the cars it sells. Now, it's interesting. They talk about the Swedish car maker, but it's interesting. I think that Volvos now are all made in China.
Yeah, it seems like they sold out to somebody.
Yeah, they sold out to, I
don't know.
Ming Ping.
Well, okay.
Somebody, whatever. But I mean, the Swedish car maker is cutting the top speed to 112 miles from 130. Mm-hmm. And I thought this, and of course, one of the guy comes out President Hakan Samuelsson, 3 S's, said a statement: if we can save even one life, it'll be worth it. And of course, the question is, what's the difference between 112 and 120? There are not that many people, even driving down I-75, that don't go more than 80, say.
Right.
I mean, if you see somebody doing 100 miles an hour, they're being chased by a cop.
Yeah.
And there's helicopters overhead. You can tell when those guys are...
Yeah, I was going to say a couple things about that. Obviously, it's interesting that for a long time, Americans have bought cars which are way overpowered.
Oh, yeah.
But it is useful in one context, in traffic. That is to say, if you're in heavy traffic, in 5 lanes of traffic, or 4 lanes, or whatever, downtown Miami is during rush hour, it's nice to be able to, it seems safer to be able to get around the other cars with more ease, merge more easily. And
you mean with high power engine?
yes.
Yeah, okay, right.
So there's that. But this is a piece of corporate advertising right here.
Yeah. Well, Volvo has always claimed to be safe.
Exactly. And they're going with that. They're
Yeah.
just doubling down on their main thing there. But that's I think to be expected. I'm kind of surprised nobody's built a rubber car yet. Really, just gone whole hog on the. It's a balloon car and anything, and you pop it like a piece of popcorn or something. But they can do whatever they want. But the second thing I would say is this one life business. This is an argument that everybody should see the giant red flag immediately, because whenever you see that, obviously what's happening is the people are trying to frame the argument in terms of something which is much more valuable, which is life. Mm-hmm. We're really talking about miles per hour or something
miles
else.
per gallon.
Well, yeah, something else entirely here. And there are lives on the other side. For all we know, there's somebody's life would have been saved because they were trying to drive the guy to the hospital, and if the car had gone 130 instead of just 112, well,
yeah,
you know.
That's right.
But more likely, the scenario about the saving lives comes down to if this advertising doesn't work out right. That is to say, they double down too hard on the safety issue, and people stop buying Volvo cars. Then people's jobs are lost, and then an economy, at least local economy, collapses, and then people's lives really are affected.
Yeah.
So,
well, they're
affected
side. In a lot of ways. Anyway, we saw this when the speed limit by Congress was designated to be 55. Mm-hmm. And what we saw was there were people that were, you figure when you're taking a long trip, there was an extra 20 minutes delay, which, I mean, that's time that's wasted. I mean, that's, you could be doing something productive, but no, you're just coming down the road or whatever it is. And they figured out by the time you figure the millions of people on the Florida, just here in Florida, that are blowing off 20 minutes at a time, you're talking about months of wasted time collectively. So
right.
Anyway, that's the whole thing is so silly.
Yeah.
The company is looking now. What's interesting, they're going to double down, or they're thinking about doubling down. What the company is looking for ways to use software and geofencing technology, whatever that is, to limit the speed of Volvos when they drive by schools and hospitals. So here you are coming down now again. Schools, as you know, are timed. Mm-hmm. So if you suddenly you're coming down the road that it's 45 miles an hour, but it's a 15 mile an hour speed limit in the school zone,
it just slams on the brakes.
Slams on the brakes. I mean, now they said they're investigating this and so forth, and the hospitals. If the hospital is, here's the other thing. You're gonna do all this speeding or all this slowing down business in front of a hospital, for instance. Here comes an ambulance. Get out of the way, for God's sakes. But, but your car is slowed down.
It drives you off into a ditch at that point. Look, and anybody who thinks that they're going to be driving after 5 years from now is...
that's the other thing, too, right. So, anyway, safety advocates are increasingly warning higher speeds are a factor behind traffic fatalities. The Safety Council estimates 40,000 people were killed in traffic accidents in the U.S. last year, which is a lot of people. When you weigh that against some of the other stuff...
Well, that's why it became such a big deal.
Yeah.
That's exactly why it attracted so much attention and why the whole DUI movement sprang up and everything. People were like, oh my God, we're losing all these people. I mean, murders are like 400 or 40 or something. I mean, it's ridiculously low. And then you compare that, it's 100 times that number. And so, you can understand that. But the problem is, the difference is that it's an accident. And like accidents are going to happen. And there's so much productivity that goes into the travel that it really, that supports a bunch of life right there. Just the agriculture that can be done because of the travel is enormous. And, I mean,
well, it is interesting because one of the things you do get to see on YouTube, which is always fun, are the people that have their cameras up there in the car and they watch an accident happening in front of them, and like you say, these are accidents, a lot of them. Some guys are running down the road and the truck tips over right in front of them. Always fun. Okay, next item. Median one-bedroom rent for San Francisco.
Aha, San Francisco. Yeah. Fire off the transporter.
Oh, good deal. Where am I?
Yeah. Well, actually, there was an error. Okay, so you're in Hong Kong. you're in a cement tube, which that's what they've got to in Hong Kong.
Okay, good. Well, speaking
I got a nice apartment in the Golden Gate Bridge behind me here.
Okay, well, speaking of Hong Kong, the median one-bedroom rent in San Francisco soars to nearly $3,700 a month.
Mm-hmm.
One bedroom. Okay, we're talking about someplace that's smaller than where we are here right now.
It's as big as your tube.
Yeah, it's as big as my tube, right? San Francisco median. This is a median now. Of course, that means that 50% are under 3,700 and 50% are over, which you can imagine. I don't know what this distribution is, but it's more than double the rent of a one-bedroom in Miami, instances, which is very expensive. The median rent for a two-bedroom in San Francisco is $46.30 a month. I mean, you got to be making that is what. That's $50,000 a year for something for your basic rent.
Well, and if you do the 30% thing, so you're making $1.50.
Yeah,
that seems like that's reasonable.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So next, we've talked about this one before. Speaking of China, China's social credit system blocks 23 million purchases of train and plane tickets. Now, out of a population of 900 million. Or whatever it is over there, 23 million is like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
But the system has kicked in.
Yeah.
And this is where the government, basically grades you as you walk around, just normally walking around. And if you jaywalk, clamor, click, face recognition, and you get a demerit. Yeah, right. And you get a demerit. The tech community responded to the Guardian report with some astonishment that China's social credit system is already dishing out penalties on a vast scale, since Chinese officials previously spoke of beginning with limited test runs and pilot programs. There's also deeply disturbing, and I like this part of the word, the sense that China's dystopian surveillance nightmare is merely a focused and amplified version of what we do in the private sector. As you know, and privately here, you have grades on your credit report, eBay, stuff like that, but it's all private. Basically, essentially, there's no guns involved. You don't. Now, you might, your car insurance might go up, but that's a private deal. If you've had a DUI or an accident, or if you're 16, you're going to have some things that are going to be done. So this was in Britain. Everybody, and not only here in the United States, we're all resigned to credit checks and scores privately on our stuff like that, and even Uber drivers are kind of like eBay, and that you rate them, they rate you, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the bottom line is everybody should get used to this, because this is going to be the norm on everything. Right. Every single business is going to have some sort of rating scale for your interactivity with them. There'll be some sort of reporting, and it'll all be amalgamated and conglomerated. I think it'll be fine, because it won't be the government won't be able to give you a bad score, because there'll be too much interest in them giving you an accurate score.
Right.
So the business community will take great pains to give you an accurate score, and
well, most of the time you hear horror stories.
Well, as time goes on.
Yeah.
I mean, right now we're in the infancy of this stuff. We've had credit rating agencies
forever. Yeah.
Well, okay, and so that's what you had, and of course recently now there's 3 or 4 of them or whatever, and of course the whole freecreditreport.com, that whole thing about. But I think it's just. I think that's all. This is like the beginnings of Consumer Reports, if you ask me. This is going to be a reports on consumers type of thing, a reverse.
Well, you get that with Yelp.
You'll get it, yeah, exactly, and that's how it'll come in. It'll just be a little bit more. You'll have a license rating and a business rating and a financial rating, and then at some point there'll be some sort of, I don't know what else, but there'll be other ratings.
Yeah, well, there are, and of course, one of the things you got to be worried about is how can you complain if it's wrong? And what's one of the problems we've seen in credit report is, you see this all the time, where somebody calls up and says, "What the hell happened here?" And they say, "Well, you have to wait 5 years to get this off," and blah blah.
Well,
blah.
as you know, though, the more people who participate, the more flexibility there will be built into it.
Yeah.
There'll be all kinds of different services, and then there'll be services who come on and just blacklist people, like Southern Poverty Law Center. You get your negative rating, but then they get their negative rating, so to
As far as
speak.
I'm
Like
concerned, that
everybody understands now. If they give you a negative rating, that's almost a positive rating. So, and that's the way it'll be. Everything will be lots of information.
Well, the one thing that won't happen here, like for instance, one of the things, if you play your music too loud on a train, you get demerits in China. So that's probably not going to happen here. You know, even if you have a boombox on the bus, somebody might take you. So anyway, you know,
right. Well, it won't be good in Aceh.
Aceh.
You've got another story in Aceh about.
Oh, right. Oh, God, yeah. I do have that. So anyway, is this both unique and part of a global trend and not comforting analysis when discussing a system that prevents people from boarding trains if they write blog posts and anger the powers that be?
Right.
And of course, even here, to some extent, there's a with this PC business, there's a bit of a hesitation for people to speak their mind here at the city commission meetings or something like that. You know,
a little bit more, but it's definitely more institutionalized over there. In fact,
yeah.
I was talking with a Chinese comedian last night at the show, and he told me I started making a case for unlimited free speech, and he got a sort of a whitish, fearing sort of, yeah, exactly, like, don't say that too loud.
That's right.
You know, and he told me that there are definite limits. He said, you can say a lot of stuff, but there are certain times, certain places, you can't say certain things about certain groups.
About
or
the powers that be.
You cross the line.
Yeah.
And I explained to him our dumb restrictions, but that they were dumb. And I told him about the nursery rhyme, which he had never heard before, the Sticks and Stones.
Oh, yeah, really?
Never heard it. And I'm like, that's what we are about here, man. When you graduate to adulthood, you are in charge of the effect that words have on you. Done. It's over. And and I tried to explain to him, look, it's like learning a foreign language. You have to interpret those things. All those language words you mean you have to assign some sort of gravity of meaning to each one. So it's up to you.
Yeah.
They don't overpower you.
Well, speaking of, though, of course, it's kind of interesting. Speaking of the government thinking what you're going to see, watching free porn in Britain is about to get a lot trickier, thanks to new rules that aim to protect children from online smut. As early as next month, porn sites will be required to get proof of an ID from UK residents before they're showing any X-rated clips. Now, the way you do this is they use an age ID system where you have to sign up with this central age ID people, and you give them your credit card or whatever, your passport number, your whatever it is to affirm that you're some, and then they give you a special code that you can use to sign on to a porn site. Mm-hmm. And so, but it's interesting when someone first checks on the site, the block page comes up and says, "What is your whatever this thing is called, your age ID number, code, whatever the hell it is," and then they will allow you into the porn site.
Your papers.
That's right. This is a one-time verification with a single sign-on for future access. Well, of course, the question you have to ask yourself is,
just a one-time.
Well, not only that, but because there's another thing here. They said Brits will also be able to access porn sites using a voucher that you can buy from high street shops. Now, this reminds me of the old liquor days when, you're 15, 16 years old. And you,
hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Give me a voucher?
Here's $5. Go in and buy me a bottle of so-and-so. No, I mean, you gotta be
That's easy peasy. No, this, to me, I wish we would get to a point, and nobody's really called that out in general, so I'm going to do it right now.
Okay, good.
This is ageism. This is age. Anytime you see a restriction based on somebody's age, there's a better way to restrict that group from whatever it is. Or
you think? How about voting?
Yes. Except for that, no, I'm just no. Here's what you could. You wouldn't have to have voting, and I don't want to get too deep into it because what would happen is the parents would control all the minor votes. I mean, you can't even get to the freaking polls unless you can drive or run. You don't care until you're 12 or 13 anyway. So there goes all those people. The people who in between, it would be some sort of parental decision. Okay, I'm going to go vote. No, you're not. I'm going to wear shoes. I'm not going to wear shoes out. Yes, you are. That kind of thing. And so I don't think there'd be a problem at all. Now, old people driving. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
No, you could go through each one of them, I think, but this is another one where you certainly don't need it. Whenever I see a law that is intended to protect children that applies to everybody, it's bad. Because the whole point, there's a differentiating line when it comes to freedom when you're dealing with adults or kids. Kids have no freedom. They are under the purview of their parents for the most part. They it's a dictatorial system. They can be they can be imprisoned in their rooms or whatever. They have no freedom. They can't free speech, nothing. But when you're an adult, you need all those things, and so everything changes. And
what's interesting is, of course, when we're traveling through France, and you see the kids at the table, and they have a glass of wine. You know, the parents are saying, "Fine, here." You're talking about somebody 8 years old to have a sip of wine or whatever. Right. A big wine drink or stuff, and nobody cares. I mean,
it's because you can count on the parents to deal with it until the kids are old enough to make their own decisions.
Yeah. So. All right, moving along. Speaking of which, we just dovetailed into 6 young couples flogged in front of a crowd having sex outside of marriage. Now, was the crowd having sex outside? No. The 6 young couples were having sex outside of marriage. Now, this is a place in where is this? Aceh, it's called. Aceh. Okay, Aceh, and it's in Indonesia.
Correct.
Now, apparently, this is a small place there that very strict Sharia law, very strict. And I guess if you move there, you're supposed to obey the rules. But of course,
even if you visit,
that's the part that I liked, is including travelers who fall foul of the rules. Well, this is interesting. Of course, this happened years ago in Singapore, where the kid scraped a car or put gum on the road or something like that, and he was supposed to be caned.
Yeah.
And
in this province, Aceh province, they will cane you for alcohol or for even being in the presence of someone of the opposite sex who is not your marriage partner or a family member.
If you're doing a PDA, a public display of affection. That's a caning offense.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Well, we should say that. And so here's the situation. A little backstory about Aceh.
Okay.
So this is Aceh of Banda Aceh, where the giant tidal wave was, the giant tsunami.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now this is a province in Indonesia, and the reason it is because it sits on the ring of fire right there, and in a totally unrelated incident, this is the province that has Toba Lake, which Toba is the area where the largest volcanic eruption in the last 25 million years happened.
Whoa.
About 75,000 years ago, it blew out 700 cubic miles of material into the atmosphere, which covered most of Africa and may have caused the human bottleneck and the final out of Africa push of our ancestors. But a gigantic, obviously earth-shaking eruption.
Earth-shaking, yes.
So, but this province suffers cataclysms somewhat regularly. As you can see, we're both in the same place, but we're in different times. You're there and right after the tsunami, and what you can see behind you is total devastation, everything destroyed except for this mosque. This mosque survived the tidal wave. And what happened was this province went full Sharia after the wipeout.
Okay.
Because they were like, oh my God, how could this and when you look at this, there is nothing in this picture except the mosque, and the mosque looks it even looks clean. It's ridiculous.
It was clean.
Well, yeah, it was clean. Now, it is gutted. When you see some of the other pictures, you can see obviously it was gutted. But it's there, and they built the museum around it now, and they went full Sharia, and this is the result. This is the one province in Indonesia that you don't have a choice about adherence to Sharia law.
Yeah.
They just impose it. Whether you're a visitor, 5 minutes, it doesn't matter. You're there. If you do something wrong, you're getting the cane. But the rest of Indonesia is kind of split 50-50.
Oh, there's lots of splits. Indonesia is an archipelago.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what, 1,000 islands or something like that, or?
I don't know.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So, but it's there you go.
But I thought it was interesting because it includes the travelers, and I would like to think that there would be a warning advisory for Americans, especially if you go there with your girlfriend. Woohoo! That would be.
You just, man, I wouldn't be going. That's why I'm not going there.
No. Glad to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Northwestern neuroscientists researching brain chips to make people super intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
As little as 5 years, super smart people could be walking down the street, men and women who've paid to increase their intelligence. This guy, Dr. Moran Cerf, has made the prediction because he's working on a smart chip. Mm-hmm. Now they don't know if it's going to be a little thing that you swallow, or you get to do it like they do in the movies, where you just like in Paycheck, where they put the little thing in the arm and it goes to reset you. So they're thinking about you might be able to make an internet connection. Just thinking about stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm going to access Google. Blah, blah, blah. Well, the thing about it is
it's not any faster than what I can do with my phone.
Well, that's pretty much. But what's of course they've gotten a lot smarter just in the last decade. Mm-hmm. What's interesting to me, of course, is the the unintended consequences, because you've got smart people. What he's worried about is the gap between smart people that have the chip, paid for the chip, and the ones that haven't paid for it.
Yeah.
So you have people with a mere 120 IQ, 140 IQ, who are stumbling around like boobs, and here you got the
dragging.
That's right, and they're knuckle draggers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet you got
I hear the argument on both sides against artificial intelligence, that it's going to leave all the smart people. Only the smart people are going to be in control, and conversely, I've seen only the dumb people are going to have jobs, because the computers will take all the smart jobs and they'll force everybody to do manual labor.
Well, I noticed. I'm going to talk about this in a second, because I went last night to a local city commission put on. We're getting ready to have an election here on mayor and a couple of commissioners on the city. And so I went to their little rally thing where they tell you how good they are. But what this showed me, of course, was the dumb people are, in fact,
in charge already.
And I mean, even some of the smart people are ludicrously. I mean, you would think they've got degrees, advanced degrees. They've done all kinds of stuff. But what they're trying to do is just you look
well,
at them.
We can always hope it ends up like the Isaac Asimov iRobot, where the very intelligent robot dishes out the commands to the people who are slightly less intelligent, but they implement everything. They're the administrators. And when the robot identifies somebody who is evil or not pulling their weight, it marginalizes them without...
I don't remember that part of it.
Yeah, that was the big mystery at the end of the very final one was people... like accidents would happen to people and they were like, man, these computers are whacking people or something. Right. And what the computers would do is they would cause errors to happen in the people's business, so that person's influence on society would be diminished. But the computers were not able to report that, because they knew that once they reported that the humans would take some action against the computers, which would undo that, and that would undo the whole process. They were caught in a logical.
Yeah, right. I see. It's an amoeba strip or whatever.
Right.
So anyway, they. But that's what he's worried about is the intelligent gap. We already have one. In case you're interested. Look, and of course, remember now, the singularity is supposed to be here in 10 years.
Yeah. Nobody has to worry about any of that stuff. It's
okay. Moving along here. Let me just. There's been a mysterious surge in $100 bills in circulation, possibly linked, and they always do this, to global corruption. And
I thought you were going to say warming.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. Or it's Trump's fault or something. Russia. Okay. The number of $100 bills in circulation is surging and is leaving some economists scratching their heads. Well, there's a whole lot of things that it's not scratching my head. First of all, the $100 bills have to be printed. Mm-hmm. And the Treasury, whoever does the printing of this stuff, they make money on $100 bills, because it costs the same to print a $1 bill as it does a $100 bill. And so when you're printing something like that, you're making money going away. The number of outstanding $100 bills has doubled in the last 10 years.
And just as an aside, so all of these bills are marked with a specific mint location.
Yeah.
How can they not know? Isn't there an easy statistical distribution analysis of the bills?
Interesting you should mention that, because, as you know, they've been printing $100 bills for I don't know how long. Mm-hmm. And one of the things about $100 bills is they stay in circulation a lot longer than $1 bills.
Right. Well,
15 years or something like that is what they typically would, and of course it can be even more than that because they're not just generally spent that much. But interesting, the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago estimates that 60% of all U.S. bills, and almost 80% of all $100 bills, are overseas. That is to say, they're used in transactions in Russia or someplace else.
Still, though, my guess is if there's been a surge in the appearance of $100 bills, there must have been a surge in specific dates and locations. I would think. I mean, unless they're just too few, and there's no.
Well, there are more. There are more $100 bills in circulation than there are ones.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean,
but anyway, it's been a pressure to get rid of high denomination notes in order to curb international crime. Well, one of the things that's interesting, because right now, I believe there's a 500 euro note, which is, but I think they're talking about phasing that out. And the Swiss franc also has a 500 Swiss franc note or something, which is, apparently is used. And they're talking about phasing that out. Well, one of the things that happens on this stuff to me is, and there's people here in the United States that are former Secretary of Treasury or whatever it is, Summers, he wants a moratorium on printing new high denomination notes that would make the world a better place. Well, the thing about it is if you're going to go even in cash, which you might want to do, you have a stack of 20s is a lot different from a stack of hundreds. And I mean, for legitimate purposes. It's
talking about just ease of transaction.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, of course, that they're finding out is that the transactions nowadays are more and more on your phone,
right?
Easy Pay or something like that.
We talked about that. China's going lots. There's going to be a whole bunch of different ways.
Yeah. But I think that this idea to eliminate the $100 bill or whatever, or the larger ones, because they think that they facilitate crime, I'm thinking, not really. Crime's going to find a way around it. The same way I've always talked about. They want to take money out of politics. No, you're not going to do that. I mean, the fact is that when you have $4 trillion running through Washington D.C., it doesn't matter if you had a automatic shooting for somebody who tried to bribe a congressman. It would never.
Yeah, and my thought on that initiative would be they would have to take the entire denomination out.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they basically, there have been no $1,000 bills printed since, I think, 45 or 50, something like that. I mean, $1,000 bills these days. I mean, I remember when you could go.
They might.
And $500 bills, same thing.
These days you could print $1,000 bills. You could put RFID chips in each one of them. You could have the thing whenever it shows up at a bank, it downloads a freaking map of every place it's been.
Well, that's one thing, but who knows? But it's all, to me, it's all about control. It's not about tracking. They want to make sure that. Even when you have legitimate use, they want to know all about it. I mean, as it is now, for instance, if you legitimately want to take $10,001 out of the country, and you forget to tell them on the special form, and then it turns out the fine for failing to fill out that form is exactly how much money there is.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a red flag. Well, my thought is that there really should be a constitutional amendment, which...
Another one, okay.
Yes, and straight out of this is Article 1, Section 8, and this, where it says Congress shall have the power to coin money. Okay, fine, but there needs to be a prohibition, there needs to be a free coinage of money amendment. That is, anybody should be able to coin money.
Yeah.
And then let the best coinage survive.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you should mention that because the governments of all stripe for thousands of years have really not been happy about that.
Well, of course,
and
because they realize once all the money gets out there that's a great way to control what's going on.
Well, not only that, it's a way to dilute it. Because if you have to use, as you know, the way they do now is just to print up more of it so that it dilutes. But in the old days, of course, they would, the kings would melt the gold coins down and dilute them.
Or and chip the sides off.
Yeah, chip the sides off, right? Well, that's, of course, why we have ridges.
Bag and shake them, yep.
Yeah. So But that's what they love to do, is to control the money.
That's why it should be. It's ridiculous to allow one group to control the money, because what they're literally doing is controlling one side of every single bargain that's made with dollars.
They had years ago, and I forget exactly, I'll have to go look it up. This was maybe 20 or 30 years ago. There was a fellow who was printing silver rounds.
Von Nothaus.
Is that who it was?
Yes.
Okay. See, I'd forgotten the guy's name, but yeah. So what was the deal on that? He looked too much like money or something, or
well, it was too close. It might have said something on there like $20 or something. He just barely crossed the line. Actually, he would have been fine, except that he really is a nutbag. Over and over, he kept pushing him. His name is Von Nuthouse for a reason. And it's because he's a loony guy, but he was doing fine. It was incredible. He was selling these $20 silver rounds, 1 ounce rounds for $20. Mm-hmm. Back when silver was $5 an ounce. Yeah. And then, of course, it went up to $50 an ounce. And anybody who bought in on him it's
like Bitcoins.
They had made 2.5 times their money. It was great. It was awesome. But he eventually went to prison and may still be there. I know he went to federal prison at some point. He might be about time to get out about now. It's been 10 years or so. So
at least that.
Maybe I'll check up on him. But
because silver the first time went to $50 in 1980.
I think he called it a Liberty dollar.
Yeah.
Was the problem.
Yeah.
And if he hadn't called it a dollar, if he called it a Liberty coin or something.
Well, you can still get rounds all day long, of course.
Oh yeah.
In God, and they even say, God save the Queen or whatever.
So, yeah, some of them look a lot like coins.
Yeah, they do. But they always have stamped on their 999 silver, 1 ounce, whatever it is. You got to trust them.
Yeah.
So speaking of money, taxing the rich, an idea gaining ground in the United States. Long out of favor, which is bullshit, has never been long out of favor. Taxing the rich whoever wrote this article does not know anything about history. Long out of favor in the United States, the idea of taxing rich individuals and corporations to pay for health care or to combat inequality is gaining ground among Democrat politicians. While the United States reveres free enterprise and is home to the world's largest number of billionaires, which I'm not sure about that, such tax proposals have been gaining traction. More than one Democratic contender in next year's presidential elections is campaigning on a plan to tax the wealthy. And what we've seen across the board just about are these, they want to, Elizabeth Warren, for instance, wants to have a wealth tax, on your assets. And so, basically, once you start that off, it's not long before, as we've seen with the income tax, which it got passed based on only 50 people in the United States are going to have to pay this, or whatever it was. And, literally 5 years later, it was for everybody. So, but what I find stunning in a way is that Warren Buffett and Bill Gates are promoting this. And I'm thinking, because they're campaigning against this severe wealth inequality. And I'm thinking, okay, give it all. I mean, of course, they're trying to give it away. They planned on that. They're giving it away and all that stuff, I suppose. But why would they deny anybody else to become as rich as they are?
Yeah, I think we talked about this last time. But look, for all we know, they're just doing that as advertising. They want to be on board with the tax the rich, so that they can keep all the money, so that they don't get mobbed one day. Every time they go to a restaurant, they can say, no, I support taxing me more. I'm not actually giving any more, but I support if you were to pass that.
I have an accountant that determines what my taxes are, and he basically takes some deductions.
That's right.
Whether you like it or not.
Well, to me, any talk of tax reform is rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
No question about it.
Every single time.
It's 700 pages or something, or 7,000 words, or the basic code.
Well, and it's
or maybe 7,000 pages.
Sources and everything. And there's arguments about, should we do the corporations or just the people or just the border or whatever? And from my perspective, I'm backing way up to it should be voluntary at this point. Yeah. I think we could start turning taxes and funding for various parts of the government over to the general public. It's not the country is not nearly as disjointed as it was 200 years ago. Instantaneous communication, travel, money transfer. You don't need Western Union. You don't need a guy on a freaking pony to deliver the gold nuggets
Wells Fargo.
through Indian country.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
It's Coinbase, 3 clicks away. The money's in New York.
Right.
So I think we could evolve substantially in terms of our participation in our social contract. You hear this all the time. People talking about, what's a social contract? You agree to pay the taxes. Okay, great. If you agree to pay them, then why not just ask everybody?
Yeah. How about unagree?
Well, right. What happens if I unagree? Well, you can't do that.
You can't do that.
But
Interesting. Along these same lines, high tax states make it hard for the rich to leave. Now this is one of the things that's kind of interesting, because it turns out now, if you want to leave this country behind, you have to pay a lot of money, and basically you have trouble taking your stuff with you. They make it very difficult. You have to pay big money and so forth if you in order. Now, and of course, as I just said, if you want to take $10,000 out in any kind of negotiable, which I don't know how they do with credit cards, if you happen to have an unlimited on your credit card, you walk through you can go out with that if you wanted to, and then cash it in someplace else. Anyway, so the it says, but not well-off folks are treated alike under the new law. Controversial provision that helps pay for huge corporate tax cuts punishes residents of states with higher income taxes, most of which, but not all, happen to be lean Democratic. By setting a $10,000, now what happened was, in the tax bill that Trump signed a year ago or whatever it was, it turned out that there was a $10,000 cap on states that had an income tax, state income tax.
Right.
And of course, up until that tax bill, if you had if you paid a state income tax of $100,000, you could deduct it on your federal tax. Well, now the cap is $10,000, and there's people now that are being hurt bad.
Well, because there are some states with some high income tax.
Right. Oh, I think California's like 12% or something.
Yeah.
So the point is that if you happen to be a Google guy or whatever it is out there in the Silicon Valley, this is a hell of a thing. Well, it turns out that some of these people, rich people, especially in New York and California, saying, whoa, wait a minute, what can I do to get around this? Well, it turns out if you set up your domicile in another state, for instance, Florida. I remember when I was in high school, Florida has always had, no inheritance tax or an income tax. And I remember one of my dear friends, his dad had a Florida tag on his car, and he basically had a residence, I think, down here in Florida, and
I live there.
Yeah, I live there. Right, here's my tag. And there was a reason for that. Anyway, it's gotten to the point now where people are moving to Florida for that reason. But needless to say, the high-tax states are saying, wait a minute. Yeah, you're really out of here. We see you still got a house here. You still got a business. You still have some, you fly in and out of here all the time, so forth and so on, to do your business. Where is your residence, really?
Right.
So they've come up with something they call the teddy bear test. And this is typical of a judge. There are certain things that you take with you when you move, and certain things you leave behind. And so if you've taken your teddy bear down to your new domicile, that means you're moved, basically. So they had, there's a curious gauge.
Sounds like that arose out of family law domicile court.
Oh, could have been. I don't know. Anyway, residents tied to location of items near and dear to the taxpayer, often called the teddy bear test. Where you leave your teddy bear? Well, it's another guy. They actually, when they had a couple of these people that won their case, they had moved, even if you moved your cars down there and everything else, but apparently you have to be something that's near and dear. Well, one guy that was claiming this, and I think it was New York, was saying, no, you haven't really moved. But his dog was down there in Florida. And so they said, no, that's where you've gone. That's near and dear. Your dog, for God's sakes, you're not going to leave. If your dog was still up here in New York, we'd understand. But no, your dog is in Florida. So I thought that was interesting that the rules, when the states are losing money like this, they'll pull out all the stops to try and get it back.
I have an emotional support cactus.
Yeah, right, exactly. So anyway, okay, moving along. China, international news. China's Xinhua presents news using a robot news news anchor. And I was wondering, how is that so much different from what we have here?
Right.
I mean, you look at some of these, they call them talking heads for a reason.
Well, you've seen that one video that splits into parts.
Oh, right, and they're all saying the same thing. Yeah. I mean, you sit there. So anyway, they've got this. Apparently, have put this very lifelike news anchor. She's a girl or whatever, and and she's doing the news. And I guess it's being fed to her through. But it's an AI, and her lips move and everything like that. And I think, as I said, I was looking at this and I said, he used a lifelike robotic news anchor that mimics human facial expressions and mannerisms to present the story about delegates. And this happened to be on one major meeting in Beijing.
That should replace at least half of our people.
Oh, totally. I mean, you got to be kidding me. It is interesting when you see what we do have for news anchors. There's the one that has the naked news.
I was just going to bring that up. I was
Great minds run the same.
There was something that
She's
wondered.
like totally naked, full frontal, everything.
But the one girl takes her clothes off as they're.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. And but yeah, you would think that would be. I mean, just because. News these days, it's all just somebody's narrative.
Well, it is interesting because they always have one of the things that they have on YouTube a lot are the Mexican or South American weather chicks, and they are they are poor, they are skinned. I mean, you talk.
Well, everybody on Spanish TV is like that.
Yeah, right. Well, they no. There's
all the girls.
Well, not all of them. There is. It turns out. I mean, you mean the weather chicks. Because there is a show called La Flaca and the other one, the Fat
Gorda,
and the Thinny, huh?
Yeah, the Gorda and the Flaca.
Yeah, right.
But
she's not anything attractive.
Okay.
But I mean, but he's fat.
Yeah.
So whatever. Anyway, and they have this show that's on all the time. It's just like this one here. He has a newspaper and he talks to things, but it's mostly in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And interesting, in Japan, it's getting in the act. An ancient Japanese shrine debuts a Buddhist robot. High-tech twist to offer Buddhist wisdom is easily understood by younger generations. Mindar is the name of this. Takes a gender neutral form, but this form, all gender neutral, but spouts out the Buddhist sayings and live long and prosper or whatever it is, and at this shrine, at this Buddhist shrine. So
we decided to make our robot a masculine,
it's androgynous, robot. So
look, can you imagine the backlash one?
No, but I mean over there, you go to the shrine. I mean this shrine apparently is like a really popular shrine, and so now they replaced the actual monk with a robot.
We've had that at Disney World.
Yeah. Oh no, I know they've done a lot of that. Okay, moving along to the battle of the sexes. A road race paused after a woman rider catches up with the men. Now this is a 75-mile race in Belgium, I think it is, or something like that. A big circle of one-day race or whatever it is. And what they do is they let the men go 8 minutes or so ahead of the women. And the men go a lot further. They go like 125 miles. The women go, I forget, 50 or 75 or something. But they start off, the first 30 kilometers or so are the same. So this one girl, caught up with the peloton, or almost caught up with the peloton. They said, "Whoa, you can't! What's she going to do? This is no fair," something like that. And so what they did is they basically got out there on the road and they stopped the women's race for 10 minutes. Everybody, all the women had to hold back for 10 minutes while the men got out in front again. So I thought that was interesting. But now they supposedly got them all back into where they were supposed to be and fired them back up. But again, theirs was a shorter race anyway. But I thought it was interesting. They had forgotten. They're going to change the rules, and now they're going to let the men go a little earlier, so that the women won't catch up again. And this apparently was a big deal. But I thought that was really interesting. Nicole Hanselman of Bigle attacked about 4 miles into the loop, one-day race through Flemish Ardennes. So anyway, they had to. Let me just see. 8 minutes earlier. Oh, and they give the speeds. They give them here in miles per hour. But anyway, so they had to pause it for 10 minutes in order to do whatever they're doing. So more in sports. I'm getting here to the end. Mm-hmm. More in sports. The world's top-ranked bridge player suspended for doping. I'm thinking.
I saw this story.
I am sitting here. The Federation said on its website Friday that Here Elgama, who is Norwegian, but represents Monaco in bridge events, tested positive for synthetic testosterone and female fertility drug, whatever it was, at a World Bridge Series event in Orlando, down here in the thing. So they basically have suspended her, him, whoever this person is, I don't even know, after accepting, he. It says he. Now, of course, anymore, you don't know if it's a he.
Right.
Because you can get hurt.
You don't know if they're
trans or not.
Right.
So I'm guessing it might be a he. Anyway, he was suspended by the foundation until November 20th. He also had all his titles and medals and points from the 2018 bridge revoked. And what's interesting, they recognized, and I'm not sure what this would be, they recognized that the doping or whatever this guy was taking was non-performance enhancing. What do you have in a performance enhancing in bridge?
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, like Adderall or something, some type of...
Well, maybe one of these memory chips.
Right.
That's what you got. That's what you have is the chip that enhances your recall ability. So,
but I identify as a non-enhanced person.
Yeah, exactly. I just think this is so funny that I would never even thought that they would bother to check for chemicals in a bridge tournament.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
I thought that was funny. Okay, so my last thing I've got here is what better way to put the fun back into prom night? We're coming up on prom night here, not too long. Than banning limos, party buses, and luxury vehicles. Now, one of the things that we used to get to do, of course, I'm not when I was going to proms, but one of the big deals is you get together with a couple of your buddies and maybe you rent a limo, and it's all a big deal. And of course, you have to go rent your tux anyway, and the flowers and all the other stuff. So this particular school has banned the idea of renting limos and that sort of thing, so that it want to make everybody equal.
Right.
And so it's about safety and equity. So always about safety. No matter what happens, it's always about safety. Here's the deal: you're going to the prom, and you have a limo driver, and you're not safe, because you get in your jalopy with your girlfriend, and you race on over with your thing and whiskey in your pocket, and you just sit there. So anyway, but I thought it was interesting. He doesn't want students who can't afford a quote snazzy ride unquote to feel left out. It was the decision was made by an administrative team, and he says the only way now to arrive at the school's prom, being held at the country club, is to take a chaperoned school bus at a cost of $15 a person. Boy, there is nothing more fun than arriving to your prom in a school bus.
Can you imagine? You get all dressed up. You're the prom girl. You get all dressed up, and you go down to get on the bus. And
well, at least it's a school bus,
right?
It's not like you're pulling up to the MTA or anything like that, holding your dress up as you go in or whatever. But I mean, it's. I thought it was interesting that. Proms are already expensive to begin with, but
that's the thing.
It's $15 a person.
People who can't afford tuxes.
Well, what about the people who can't afford the $30?
Yeah, or dinners.
Dinners, right? I mean, God, isn't that the truth? You go around here in prom night in Gainesville here.
It's impossible to get.
Good luck on getting a table.
Yeah, for like a week. There's no tables anywhere. Well, they'll get to those things, I'm sure.
What you got? Anything?
Okay, let's see if I got a couple of real quick things maybe. Colorado drops its latest case against the Masterpiece Cake guy, Mr. Phillips. They had
really?
Yeah, they had another one going on, but they dropped their most recent case, so we'll see how that goes.
Maybe something. Can you believe that they might have been shamed into it? Although, government people are never ashamed.
Hard to believe on that one.
No, it's hard to believe.
At least it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Again, nothing against people, whatever, wanting to do whatever they want, but to me, you don't force a guy to make a cake.
God, can you imagine?
Specific performance is just not where the right's at. A cure for AIDS? You heard about this?
Yes, they've cured 2 people of HIV. Is it?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Not a lot. Well, it said AIDS, but not a lot of people though. That's not a big scientific sample size. But
No,
at least it's a second person. But that's just so few. It's like, to me.
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah, but millions of people have died from that. It's amazing. I saw. Well, of course, Michael Jackson.
Yes. Oh my God, they stopped playing his records or something.
And the BBC did.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
And because this documentary that came out that showed he was a pedophile.
Yeah.
And
now there's a counter documentary, of course.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
But come on.
Yeah, but well, I could. Yes, and listen, don't laugh. I remember when I was growing up when Elvis first became popular. This is in the 50s, and they had Elvis burning records, especially in the South.
Yeah, but Elvis wasn't arranging for kids to sleep in the same bedroom with him.
No, but they still pilloried him.
Right.
Swivel hips. They had to, when he was on Ed Sullivan, they could only show him from here up.
Yeah, but the difference is these days that behavior's all accepted, and Michael Jackson's behavior is not accepted.
No, not really. But still, I mean, I was thinking, when I think about no matter what, some of his songs, it's the same thing I have with Kevin Spacey. I'm sorry, but some of his movies are great.
Well, yeah. Well, and you can still enjoy the art, I think. I mean, but it's the. Obviously, we can't have people just doing that to little kids. I mean, that's...
He's dead.
No, I know. I'm just saying. And it's easy to see how people would or could see those attacks at the time as being just an overblown attacks on a celebrity because, as you just pointed out, celebrities are always attacked from all angles. But when you look at the guy, I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, this is more obvious than. This is not like people looking at Trump and saying, "Oh, like what S.E. Cupp had a thing on CNN this week where she said, well, did you see how Trump hugged the flag?" And she was offended for the flag.
Really?
Yes. She said that the flag felt violated.
God. I mean, and this is a news person?
Yes. Well, allegedly. I mean, but yeah, so here she is. She anthropomorphizes the flag into a little girl. Not like a dying old man. Why couldn't it be a dying old man he's hugging?
Well, it's interesting. Of course, they accuse Joe Biden, of course, of all this stuff because
he's touchy-feely.
He's touchy-feely all the time.
He's like that guy out in San Francisco or San Diego, feely or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is different. Michael Jackson was weird. I love his music and he's great, but I mean, it was pretty obvious, I think.
Yeah.
So I guess it'll all come out soon. And that is all I have.
Okay.
So
I did say that I've been to the candidate forum. I did want to mention that, and it was interesting. They had the venue was in a place over here, and it was put on by the Chamber of Commerce. And there were 4 candidates for the mayor, one who's current mayor, and they had 2 minutes.
Hey, Lauren.
Yeah. Hey, Lauren. Right. They had 1 minute or something to tell why they should be it, and then they had a 2 minute. They asked each of them 3 questions. What are your top priorities? Blah blah blah, whatever and so forth. But the whole thing took about an hour and a half, and it was all in there. But the problem with as he said, it was not a debate. And it was just a time to have the candidates introduce themselves and have 3 sample questions on how they would handle whatever it was they were going to do. And but I looked at it and I gathered up all their paperwork and everything. And I talked to a couple of them afterwards. What was interesting to me was all the questions: affordable housing, and the mass transportation, as they call it. They all involved government solutions.
Well, of course.
These are people running for government, and they just never even thought. Even when they talk about a private government partnership, there's no partnership with government. They got guns, for God's sakes. And so, the fact is that the idea of privatizing some of this stuff just never occurs to them. As far as they're concerned, when somebody complains, we're going to pass a law, and they meet every 2 weeks to pass more laws, and the idea that the public is going to have input is a joke.
Well, they're going to have input.
No.
3 minutes.
3 minutes, that's right. 3 minutes.
Line up and do whatever, and then we're going to do what we want.
That's right.
Like, I think the pendulum is still swinging in favor of those who are using government power to do quote unquote good.
Yeah.
And they still pick up that mantle all the time and just
They
say,
do.
we're
Well,
going to solve it. We're going to do it right now.
But I mean, on some of the stuff that they want to do is on its face, you can see problems right off the bat. One, for instance, about the affordable housing. That's a problem all over the country. I know that. Affordable housing, that's, they got problems obviously out there when the rents are $3,700.
Look, if you couldn't see problems on its face, then there would be solutions. I mean, that's the thing, is that these are either individual problems that need to be solved on individual bases, or they're hyper complex where you're just not going to solve.
No, they're not. I mean, they're not really that complex. For instance, the affordable housing, one of the solutions that they want to do is if you come up with a development, let's say, whether it's a single family housing development or an apartment, high rise, you will have to set aside a certain portion, maybe 10% or something like that, for affordable housing. That is to say, low-income type housing, Section 8, I don't know what. So you've got this gated community, golf course and everything like that, and in this same place, and the houses all look the same, but there's, 10% of the people are basically wouldn't be qualified to live there ever.
Wow,
now,
did that pass?
No, they're working. The mayor's, that's his big thing. Mm-hmm. What could possibly go wrong? And of course, one of the things that they don't realize about the affordable housing, especially in this town, is one of the reasons it's not affordable is because of all the regulations. If you would get out of the way, that's what I told them. I said, this stuff that you're doing, the way you put all the rules and regulations on this stuff, you try and start a business in this town, it takes you a couple of weeks to get any kind of permit. You want to build a building? It could be months. Hell, it took over 2 years to get a Walmart here.
Well, how about the corner of 13th and University sat vacant for how many years?
Right.
And
now what's there is interesting in a way because it's a monstrosity as far as I'm concerned because it's right up to the street.
Great, I love it.
Well, you might love it, but I'm not real crazy about it.
Well, my point is though that those are, I think, individual decisions about those pieces of property.
Well, what's interesting, yes, they might be, but the way that the city always has to get involved in it somehow to feel like they're doing their job. And what you end up with are, a camel is a horse designed by a committee on a lot of this stuff. We've got show places around town here where they've built some buildings and they're just not working. I mean, right? They have one here. They've had a CVS. First of all, they had a CVS that wanted to be built right across the street from a Walgreens. They said, well, you can't have two of them in the same place. Well, they can't. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and they're both busy. But they made the CVS have an extra story on top. It's sat vacant for years now because they can't get anybody to get there. I mean, but that's wasted capital, wasted money, and so forth.
Well, you see that in several places around town.
Yes, you do.
The bottom floor of that apartment building, the Continuum down on across the street from the Siegel building, has been vacant since they built it 5 or 6 years ago.
Really? I didn't know that.
It's just it's huge. It's got to be several thousand square feet of prime real estate, and it's just been sitting there, probably because they can't find a proper
Well,
tenant.
one of the things is also about this, they were talking about affordable housing. One of the things that happens in this town is about half of the housing in this town is rental property. Well, duh, we've got 50,000 students and the professors and they all rent. A lot of them rent. And that makes, we have an overwhelming number of people that rent. But they're talking about affordable housing, and of course, they're worried that there's some more luxury condos or luxury apartments going up, and I'm saying, well, they're going to get rented. I mean, the guys are not idiots that are building this stuff. And especially if you're walking distance to the university and you have a 2-bedroom there that's rents for $1,200-$1,500 a month, and somebody's paying it, then it's affordable for that person.
I'm with you, and I think it's micromanaging to try to
They
get
can't
in
get
on
it right.
each individual apartment complex. Just let them be. If they're worried about, well, the housing thing. I mean, that's such a big issue, but that's obviously going to be one that keeps coming back up forever. But
I just when I spoke to the two of the girls that were running for mayor, I said, if you just get out of the way, is there any way you can get out of the way? And I asked them what their top priority was, and one of them said, well, police protection is one. And I said, what about the roads? I said, police protection. I got an alarm system. I got everything in the world. And I said, I even got mugged once. It took them 20 minutes to get there. I mean, it was over and done with. If it hadn't been for a neighbor who patched me up, they weren't doing me any good. So from that standpoint, and fire is the same. Well, I got fire extinguishers. But so the point is though that if you're worried about mass transportation, or what they call transportation here, why don't you repair the roads first before these buses tear it up? So anyway, this is the idea that they're going to have solutions. They've been trying to have solutions to this in the 50 years I've been here, and they've never gotten it right yet. So they're not going to.
Well, and it's because the system is wrong. That is to say, if it was part of the private system,
right,
then you would have individuals responsible for individual pieces of those things, and their own livelihood would be dependent on the success of those pieces, whether it's this strip of road or a bridge or the municipal waterworks or something like that. And once you take that away, once you make it just a socialistic thing, then as we've seen, the tragedy of the commons comes in. Everything, there's no maintenance. Things get deteriorated, and then there's great impetus for new projects and that kinds of stuff. But everyone just lets the old things disappear because nobody takes care of the system that's in place. Because there is no system. It's a one-time.
You only have to look at. I mean, since I've been here, for instance, they always talk about spot zoning, or they were worried about it. We have spot zoning here. I mean, you literally can find one parcel of land in the middle that's been zoned something else, and of course that's one of the selling points on some of this stuff. Zoned such and such. If it happens to luckily fall in. One of those things.
You're identifying this as another place they could get out of the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they did in Houston. Everybody's talking about, well, you see what happened in Houston, did you, when the floods came? Oh, yeah, okay, whatever. One time,
Well.
Okay, anyway, we're over time.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. We appreciate it. This is the Jimmy Doane Show. These tracks brought to you by Kevin MacLeod. You've heard Matt's Blues, Cold Funk, Rocket Power, Shaving Mirror, some of these. Happy Game Show, Whiskey on the Mississippi. Great tracks by this guy. We love it. I'm Counselor Curtis. This is the Jimmy Doane Show. We thank you, Dan, Thomas, Uncle John. Hope you had a good time. And we'll be back next
Sunday.
That's right, on Sunday.
On Sunday we're back. And on daylight saving time next Sunday.